Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, dear students of HSC Industry College. Hope you are going well by the grace of Almighty Allah, and you are keeping in good health, and you are studying regularly home and preparing yourselves for the coming days. And today I am here again to discuss with you the units in a sentence or clause. I think this is a very important issue for the learners at your level to know the different units in a sentence. We know them as different parts of speech or phrases in the sentence, and very often we miss to identify the units in a sentence or in a clause correctly. For example, you can see on the screen some examples, but before discussing those examples, I like to write a sentence on the board and follow the sentence. Look at this sentence. The boy on the street is poor. When in my classroom I asked the students to translate such a sentence in Bangla, very often I get the answer with the beginning such beginning that রাস্তার উপরে যে ছেলেটি দাঁড়িয়ে আছে. No, that is not the correct translation of the phrase. Actually, you have to translate that phrase together, and thus this will make this subject of the sentence. The boy on the street is poor means in Bangla, on the street identifies the boy who is standing on the street, and the whole noun word makes the subject of the sentence, and is makes the finite verb, and poor is the complement of the sentence. Very interesting to notice in the classrooms is that if I ask how many parts or units are there in a sentence or in a clause, students can identify, though they use sometimes correctly, but they very rarely can identify the units in a sentence correctly. Rather, they can name only 3 units used in the sentences, such as subject, verb and object. Well, we have been learning in this way since our childhood. Since our school days, we have been learning English language in this way. That is why this has become a belief in our mind that a sentence contains only 3 parts: subject, verb and object. Actually, verbs are also of different types. Now let us go to the projector screen. In the projector screen, you see we have 2 sentences, and in the next page we have another one. Let us discuss the units in the first and second sentences. The first sentence is, the man on the street came to me. What is the subject of the sentence? In answering such a question or analyzing such a sentence, students or learners very often identify man is the subject of the sentence, but in fact man is the head word of the subject. The subject is in the phrase form. The subject is the man on the street, and its finite verb is came and adverb is to me. I will later on discuss what finite verb is, what adverb is. Similarly, look at the second sentence and its different parts or units. Taking meals, he was sleeping there in the second sentence. In this sentence, we have the subject he. Taking meals is a participle phrase. This is a present participle phrase. And its finite verb is sleeping with an auxiliary verb was. Was is used to determine the tense form of the finite verb sleep. And in this sentence, the adverb is there. Let us look at the next or third sentence. All were afraid when the running bus hit the man. Look, this is a complex sentence. Why it is a complex sentence? It is a complex sentence because this sentence has two clauses. Clause A or clause number 1, all were afraid. This clause contains a subject all, a finite verb were, and a complement afraid. And clause number 2 or clause B contains the subject, the running bus. The running bus is the subject, not only running. Here. আপনি কারণটা BUS টেকেন BUS. Well, the running bus is the subject. Finite verb is hit and object is the man. So, from the three questions discussed too far, we have got different grammatical items as the parts or units in a sentence. Let us look at a glance different units in a sentence or in a clause. Now I will discuss what a clause is. As you have already learned, you have already heard from me about the existence of clauses in the sentence. How does a clause is made? A clause is made by a finite verb and a subject. For imperative sentences, we sometimes do not have any subject expressed. With an implicit subject, an imperative sentence is formed, but still there is a finite verb in an imperative sentence, such as go there. We do not have the presence of any subject directly, verb go makes the finite verb in this sentence. Finite verb means a verb in either of the 12 tense forms. A verb in either of the 12 tense forms. You know, we have 3 tenses in English language. Each of the tenses have each of the sentence has 4 forms, and thus we get 12 types of tense forms of verbs in English language. And any verb in either of the 12 tense forms is called finite verb. Look at this area. We have subject, you know. Without a subject, a sentence, an assertive or interrogative or exclamatory or optative sentence cannot be built. Apart from subject and finite verb, we have objects, complements, adverbs or adverb phrases, present participle, past participle, infinitive phrases, relative pronouns in complex sentences, relative conjunctions in complex sentences, and conjunctions in compound sentences. Conjunctions can be used between 2 words or 2 phrases as well. Let us see how a subject is formed, how a finite verb is used, what is an object, what is a complement, what is an adverb, what is the function of a present participle or a past participle, what is the function of an infinitive phrase, what is the function of relative pronouns or relative conjunctions or conjunctions in the English sentences. Well, so let us look at subject. What is a subject? A subject means a noun. A subject is always either a noun or a noun phrase. Well, one thing you need to know, the difference between a parts of speech and a phrase. A parts of speech and a phrase, both the parts of speech and a phrase make up a unit in the sentence, sometimes a subject, sometimes an object in the sentence or in a clause. Well, a subject is always a noun or noun phrase. The relation between a parts of speech and a phrase is that when a unit is expressed in a single word, we call it a parts of speech, such as noun, adverb, adjective, etc. And when a similar unit is expressed in more than one words, making a single idea, it is called a phrase. For example, look at the sentences I am writing on the whiteboard. Ronnie came here. Here, Ronnie is the subject of the sentence. You can identify it easily. It is expressed in a single word, thus it is a phrase, and we know it is a noun phrase. Similarly, when I write such a sentence, the man with a bag came here. the subject is the man with a bag. This is a noun phrase as it is placed in the it is placed as the subject, it is used as the subject of the sentence. So in the phrase the man with a bag, we have more than one words. It has become a phrase. Thus, a phrase is the substitute of a part of speech in a sentence making a single unit. I repeat, a phrase means a group of words making a single idea to substitute a particular part of speech in a sentence. Sometimes we confuse phrases and idioms when we go for defining them. Make sure that idiom means a unit made by more than one words. An idiom is also a phrase, a group of words making a single sense or idea, but when the words used in that phrase lost their characteristics or meaning, they are called idioms. But in the phrase, the words maintain their original sense and meanings. Thus, when we see a white elephant, it is used idiomatically. A white elephant means neither white nor elephant. It is an idiom, and both the words white and elephant are used idiomatically, making a different sense or idea. But when we say with a bag, the words with and bag do not lose their original sense or meaning, and they thus make a phrase along with the noun man, and thus the man with a bag is a noun phrase functioning as the subject of the sentence. And what is object? Both the subject and the object in the sentences look alike, because like subject, the object always must be a noun or a noun phrase, which can become the subject when the sentence or clause is made passive. For example, look at the sentence, look at the object used in the previous page. In the second clause of the third sentence in the examples, we see in the second clause we get a noun, the man, as the object. Try to make the clause passive. And when you make the clause passive, what is the passive form of the clause? The running bus hit the man. The man was hit by the running bus. So the man becomes the subject of the passive form of the active sentence, active structure. The running bus hit the man. An object is always a noun or noun phrase that can become the subject of the sentence or the clause when the sentence or the clause is made passive. And sometimes the same noun or noun phrase can be used both as an object or a complement in a sentence. Look at the sentences I write on the board. The man knows his students. You can make this sentence passive. So, when you make the sentence passive, his students will become the subject of the passive form of the sentence. His students are known by the man. You all can make it passive. And what is important, you look at the noun phrase or the object, his students. This can be used as the subject when the sentence is made passive. And when we have such a sentence, they became his students. We have the same noun phrase after the finite verb. In the previous sentence, the finite verb was no, and in the second sentence, the finite verb is become. When we have used the same noun phrase, his students after the finite verb became, we have got a different idea about the noun phrase his students. Here his students refer to the subject or qualify the subject itself. Thus, when the noun or noun phrase qualifies the subject, it is called the complement. Very often we get complements in the sentences, and we confuse the complements with adjectives. We also have adverbs in the sentences and clauses along with the subject and the finite verb. For example, when we see in the morning, we saw the students. We have we as the subject, saw finite verb, subject, saw finite verb. The students is an object, not a complement, because we can make this clause or sentence, we saw the students passive, with the students becoming the subject of the clause. But in this part we have a phrase at the beginning of the sentence or clause. We have a phrase in the morning determining the time of the verb, the timing of the verb. The phrase in the morning declares the time when the verb takes place. We also have such verbs, and look at this sentence. They went there. Went is the finite verb. There is the adverb. Went finite verb. There is the subject of the sentence. Well, what do there do in this sentence? The function of there, the function of the word there is to determine or express the place of the action of the verb, where the verb takes place is expressed by the adverb there. Similarly, by the phrase in the morning, we get the idea where, not where, when when the verb saw took place. In the definition of adverb and adverb phrases, we get the information where, when, how, why, or how long, that is the distance or duration the verb takes place. In the simplest definition, we can tell that adverbs or adverb phrases express the place, time, duration, manner, and reason. I write on the board the time, place, manner. He read carefully. How did he read? Of duration, he worked for 2 hours. How long did he work? He came for food. The reason, why did he came? Or why did he come? Why did he come? He came for food. For food gives us the idea why the verb took place. So, adverbs determine the time, place, manner, duration, distance also. He walked for 2 miles. These six ideas about verb is expressed in, these 6 ideas about the verb are expressed in adverbs and adverbial phrases in the sentences. When we get the ideas in a single word, we very naturally call it an adverb. And when we get the information about the place, time, manner, reason, distance of the verb in more than words in the single sentence, we call it an adverb phrase. For your better learning, here I give you the idea how an adverbial phrase is made, or an adverb phrase is made. Very simple. An adverbial phrase is made with a preposition and a noun with or without determiners. Look, when we say Dhaka, Dhaka is a simple noun. I know Dhaka. Here Dhaka is a noun, therefore it is an object. Dhaka is our capital. Dhaka is our capital. You see, Dhaka is a noun and it is the subject in the sentence. But when we get Dhaka with a preposition before the word, we see this noun used for an adverbial phrase. For example, I went to Dhaka. The finite verb went is followed by a phrase to Dhaka. To Dhaka is an adverb. To Dhaka is an adverb. Where did the subject go is answered by the phrase to Dhaka. That is, to Dhaka determines the place of the action of the verb went. And I told you the information about the place or time or reason or manner or distance of the action of the verb is expressed in an adverb or in an adverbial phrase. When we have the words like here, there, and home. They are now, then, suddenly, happily. They are adverbs. But sometimes adverbs are and they all are expressed in a single word, and sometimes adverbs are presented in the forms of phrases or in a unit with more than one words. When an adverb is presented with more than one words, we will get the structure that a noun with or without determiner follows a preposition, and thus the adverbial phrase is made. I am showing a few more examples. In the morning, with a glass on the road, for example, all these phrases are adverbial phrases. So, in the village, all these are the examples of adverb phrases. You see, when you call I live there, when we say I live there, there is an adverb. Similarly, when we say I live in this village is an adverbial. And adverbial, once again I tell you, is made, sometimes adverbial phrase is always made by a preposition followed by a noun with or without determiners. Well, I have used two adverbs as the examples of the parts of speech. Look, suddenly, what is there? Suddenly, in the words suddenly, adjectives sudden is added with an ly and thus has become an adverb. That is an ly with an adjective can make the adjective adverb. Similarly, happily means in happiness. He lives in happiness and he lives happily. Make the same ideas. Well, when we use the word happily, use the adverb happily, we get the adjective happy is added with an ly and thus happily the adverb happily is made. But happily can be expressed in a noun, in a prepositional phrase as well, with a preposition followed by noun. And both happily and in happiness with the same meanings make adverbs or adverbials in the same in a sentence. They have a similar sense and idea. So these are the major units in a sentence. As you see on the screen, what are the major or regular units in a sentence? In a sentence, not only subject, finite, verb and object, but also we get complements and adverbs as different units. And we have a few more extensions. We call them extensions, sometimes additional ideas in English sentences. They are present participle, past participle, infinitive phrases, relative pronouns, relative conjunctions, and conjunctions apart from the 5 major units in a sentence. I once again define the items or the units presented in this page as the extension of a sentence. What is a present participle? A present participle means ing is added with a base verb and they are used without any auxiliary verb before them. For example, when I write I was sleeping or he had been crying, we have the auxiliary verbs had been or was with the verb added by ing. The use of the auxiliary verbs was or had been makes the verbs cry or crying and sleep or sleeping finite. But when we have the use of sleeping or crying in this way, sleeping there, I feel comfort, or I saw her crying. I saw her crying. We get the verbs with ing without any auxiliary verbs before them. That is, they do not make any finite verb, as they are not presented in either of the 12 verb forms. So they are called verb forms apart from the form any tense form. Such use of verbs with an additional ing determines another verb than the finite verb, which takes place before the activity of the finite verb in the sentence. Sleeping there, I feel comfort. Sleeping, the function of sleeping takes place before the finite verb fill. Similarly, I saw her crying. That it expresses the idea that to both the finite verb and the present participle take place at the same time. In most of the cases, present participle is used to express an action that takes place before the action of the finite verb in the clause or in the sentences. And we have similar extensions with past participles. Look at the example of past participles. Past participle means a past participle used without any auxiliary. For example, I have done it. I have done it. We get the past participle of the word of the verb do as the finite verb in the sentence. The past participle of the verb do is done, followed by an auxiliary verb have. So this is a finite verb with an auxiliary have. But if we use the verb do in this way, I got the sum done by my teacher I got the sum done by my teacher. We get the past participle of the verb do without any auxiliary verb before it. So this is a past participle used as the extension in a sentence. A past participle phrase used as an extension in a sentence or clause. Well, both present participles and past participles are used as extensions in a clause or in a sentence. What is the difference between the present use of the present participle and the past participle? First thing is that both a present participle and a past participle is used to present a secondary work or job, or secondary used. Both the present participle and the past participle are used as secondary verbs within a single clause. They are called non-finite verbs. We have another non-finite verb, that is infinitive. All these are non-finite verbs. Well, infinitive, the examples of infinitive are like these ones. I wanted to do this. In this sentence, to do is an infinitive, or to do this is the extension, infinitive phrase functioning as an extension in the sentence. Well, the infinitive verb to do takes place after the activity of the finite verb want. That is, the infinitive verb determines an action to take place after the action of the finite verb. But both the present participles and past participles determine the secondary verb or the secondary action in a sentence or clause which takes place before the action of the finite verb. For example, look at this sentence. I met him going there. By the present participle phrase going there, we mean a job, a task or a verb done before the finite verb met. Reading a book, I came. Reading a book, I came. By this present participle phrase, we express a job, an activity, an action before the action of the finite verb came. Similarly, I got the sum done by him. In this sentence, the past participle done by him qualifies the verb got. The relation is that the verb of the present participle, the verb expressed in the past participle form is done before the activity of before the action of the finite verb. Similarly, you saw in the sentence, you saw the glass broken by him. We get another past participle, broken by him, as the extension in the sentence, and the verb broken is performed before the performing of the finite verb saw. Then we see the verbs in the present participle form and in the past participle form express an action before the action of the finite verb. Still, there is a very distinctive difference between the use of the present participle and the past participle. Present participle is used to refer a secondary verb in the active form, and the past participle is used to refer a secondary verb used in the passive form. Both done and broken gives an idea of a passive verb, and going and reading and present participles like these ones give us the idea of active verbs. Infinitive verbs are always in the active form. Infinitive verbs are made by preposition. There is only one specific preposition, that is to plus base form of the verb. Makes to and the base form of the verb make the infinitive in a sentence, and as I have told, infinitives are used to express a secondary verb in a sentence or in a clause than the finite verb, which is supposed to take place after the action of the finite verb. So, and all these are present participles, past participles, and infinitives are known as the non-finite verbs in a sentence, and we have not exactly extensions, but we have distinctive function of the relative pronouns, relative conjunctions and conjunctions in the sentences, in the complex and compound sentences. In the next class on 11th, I will discuss with you different verbs and the functions and making of functions of the relative pronouns, relative conjunctions and conjunctions in the complex and compound sentences. And till then, I wish you good luck, have good times, keep clean, keep safe, and individual safety will determine the collective safety of the nation and also of your community. So be blessed, stay safe, stay well. Thank you all for today.